Let's give Kelsey a warm welcome. Thank you, Kelsey.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. I know everyone's trying to eat their lunch, so I'll keep this brief. So first of all, I wanted to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Tsimshian people, and I'll talk about agricultural history as it relates to Tsimshian people as well. I noticed that in the program I'm History of Agriculture in the Skeena Valley. I titled my presentation Overview of the History of Agriculture because it's an enormous topic, so I'm just going to touch on a few areas. Is it back echoing or is it? No? Okay, that's just me hearing it. Okay, how do I turn the... Denise? Okay, can we go to the first slide, Denise? Thank you. I was looking for you. Perfect. So first of all, Norma Kirby. I'm sure many of you know Norma Kirby. Am I? Thank you. Lovely. Perfect. Thanks very much. Perfect. Okay. So Norma Kirby has always impressed upon me since I began that Terrace has a unique microclimate which has made it perfect for agricultural success. It has 120 frost-free days, winter temperatures above negative 20 degrees Celsius, long sunshine hours in the summer, and rich sandy loam with a gravel subsoil on the benches and clay subsoil on the lower ground. So this led to the terrace area being known in the early 1900s as the Okanagan of the North. We produced a lot of fruit and vegetables which were provided to communities in the Northwest. So this is an image of Robintown, which is a Kitsum-Kalem community, and it's an image of an overgrown crabapple orchard. So I know when you heard that I was coming, a lot of people would probably think that we're going to be talking about the last 100 to 150 years of agriculture in the terrace area, but it's much, much older. People have been practicing agriculture and what we would recognize as agriculture since time immemorial in the Skeena Valley. The crabapple orchards are very, there's lots of work that has been done on them in the last couple of years. There are also hazelnuts at Robintown, and Robintown is an old community site that you have to be from Kitsum-Kalem to visit. So this is an image from a Living Landscapes project that was done in partnership with the Kitsum-Kalem. So it's just important to understand that farming has been happening in this area since time immemorial, and that the European settlement, which began in the late 1800s, was an extension of that. So this is an image of Market Garden, A.M. Howe's Market Garden in the Kitsum-Kalem Valley. So it was towards the confluence of the Kalem and Skeena rivers. And this is a Frank Button photo. Frank Button was taking, it's undated, but Frank Button was taking photos in the area in the early 1900s while the railway was being constructed. So I don't know how clearly you guys can see, but this shows a really well-developed garden close to the confluence of the Kalem and Skeena rivers, and there's like log barns and log cabins on it as well. So the settlement history of farming in the Skeena Valley, the most European settlers came to the area in the early 1900s. The government opened the Skeena Valley up for preemption or settlement in the early 1900s, and people began claiming 160-acre sections. This was an inherently unfair system where the government understood the land in the north and across Canada to be open and empty, which of course we know is not true, but that is how the majority of the farms and settlement along the Skeena River came to happen. I actually don't have an image, but so for the most part, white people of European descent were settling in the Skeena Valley and farming, and the Tsimshian people who have lived here since time immemorial and farmed here since time immemorial were pushed into very small reserves at Kitsilis and at Kitsum-Kalem. There were some, of course, some complicating factors in that. We have a honeysuckle at the museum on our front gate if you've ever come to Heritage Park. It's along the archway as you walk in, and it's from Eliza Thornhill's garden from the late 1800s, and she was a Gitzlasu woman who, her land traditionally would have been near the two bridges, but once the Indian Reserve System began, her community was pushed into a very small area. So she married Tom Thornhill and had him claim the land that she was traditionally entitled to and work within that system, use like a loophole. And they lived between the two bridges, and they had a really large garden that they sold to sternwheelers, people who came up on the railway. And we do have that honeysuckle, so if anyone's interested in getting clippings, we're very happy to share. It's kind of like it takes over, so you have to be careful with honeysuckles. This is an image of the Skeena Wonder strawberry. Do any of you guys have the Skeena Wonder strawberry in your garden? Kieran and Paul, lovely. So the Skeena Wonder strawberry was specially bred in the terrace area for the Skeena climate. We have the Skeena Wonder strawberry at Heritage Park, and we're happy to share runners. We've shared out, I should have kept track from the beginning, but we've shared out hundreds and hundreds over the last 8 years, and we're happy to share them freely with anyone who wants them when they're ready. I did a list at the seed swap, and I have, I think, 40 people waiting right now, so it'll probably be in June, but we will give them to you when we're ready, so you can call me and I'll put your name on the list if you would like one. So these were bred by the Michaud brothers, who settled here beginning in 1904 off of what is now Queensway in the Thornhill area, and they bred a really large, rich strawberry that was perfect for growing in the Skeena area. And they shipped them in egg cartons by the train to communities like Prince Rupert and even as far as Montreal. They were really well known for the strawberry. It won prizes at exhibitions all across Canada. And then it was stolen, weirdly, by a firm from Michigan, a produce growing firm, who contacted the Michaud brothers and asked about buying their recipe. The Michaud brothers naively shared their recipe for creating the strawberry, and then they never paid them. So we do still have the strawberry here, though, and we're very happy to share it with you, as I said. And it's like a really beautiful, large strawberry. I don't know how clearly you can see my picture, but there's an egg in the middle, and the strawberries are compared to it. The ones that it grows now are not that big. You have to compost and fertilize really heavily with chicken manure, which is what the Michauds used to do. And you also have to rogue the strawberry, so throw away the berries, or the plants that produce small berries. So it's a little bit of work. It hasn't been done for decades and decades, but it is the same strawberry. And these are the Michaud brothers with their sister Annie in the middle, and that's their farm out at what is, it's I think called Lowry Avenue off of Queensway. They were really creative, innovative gardeners. They grew all kinds of things. They also bred banana potato, which we also have in our heritage garden, which we're also happy to share at the right time of the year. This is an image of Lloyd Johnstone at the hot springs, and I understand we're having a presentation about the hot springs later today, which I'm really excited for. This is Lloyd with a cow in the 1920s at Lake Kelsey Lake at his parents' property. And he talks in oral interviews about how the rich minerals in the hot springs water and the warmth of the water allowed them to extend their growing season and grow all kinds of really beautiful and large fruits and vegetables. And you can see here, there's a trough that used to run the hot springs water from the main hot spring 400 to 500 feet to the lake where the Johnstones had a lakefront lodge where tourists from all over the world used to come and soak in the hot springs baths. So I just thought it was kind of cool. You can see the garden in the back corner. This is an image looking down from Lanfear Hill. So you can see the orchards and farms in what is now the Horseshoe. Very like open and lots of orchard and farmland. And I have another photo here. This one's dated 1941. It's just cut off a little bit in the bottom. But you can see these are all fruit trees. And I have thought I had a space about. Yes? From Landfear looking down onto the horseshoe. Yeah, so the last two photos are about the same. There's slightly different vantage points on Landfear. I'm pretty sure I've been wrong before. So this, in the foreground, is the Thompson Hankin farm, which was a very famous farm that used to win lots of awards at the Terrace Fall Fair, which was a very well-attended thing where lots of people grew things specifically for the bragging rights of winning. This is Carl Poley on his farm on Graham Avenue in 1918 with Mary Hip, the child that's with him. The south side and the horseshoe were really rich agricultural areas where people were growing large orchards. You can still sometimes find some of the old trees in people's backyards. A lot of development sprung up, but some trees remain. And Carl Poley also had a sawmill, which became the Sandy sawmill, so near where the Sandy overpass is now. This is Floyd Frank's house along the Skeena River. His parents' house is here, which is known as the Frank Farm. The Frank house is the oldest house in the same location in Terrace. It was built in 1908, and they had a large strawberry garden along the river, and then they developed a dairy. They were also instrumental in forming the co-op, what became the co-op. So it started as a Kitsum-Kalem Farmers Institute with their father. So this is Floyd Frank's house. He had a brother, Ivan Frank, and together with their father, Henry Frank, they ran a dairy that supplied milk for all across Terrace and the surrounding area. They, in 1911, founded the Kitsum-Kalem Farmers Institute when they were frustrated by high feed costs, high seed, fertilizer, and feed costs being shipped in on the train. So they formed a cooperative group that could come together and buy seeds and fertilizers and farmers' equipment wholesale, and then sell it to their membership for cheaper. That eventually became the Terrace Cooperative Association, which became the co-op, which I know a lot of you have fond memories of. And I did have a picture, but I forgot to put it in, so of the co-op itself. But the Kitsum-Kalem Farmers Institute was really instrumental in advocating for the farmers that you saw in the earlier slides, and making sure that they had the best experience possible and that they were well supported, and they also advocated for them at a government level. I posted this recently on Facebook and got the street wrong. This is Kalem Street. I got misled by this jog. That's around the Arena Hill. In all the early maps we have, it shows it going straight through on Kalem Street, but apparently the maps just lied and it jogged around the hill. So anyways, this is a 1930s photo, and you can again see the large farmlands and how little was developed along Kalem Street. This is a photo of Mr. Mantell farming on the Mantell property at what is now Centennial Christian School. This is a 1950s photo, and it's all open once again. And this is the Mantell house a little bit later. It's at the base of Kalem Hill on Kalem Street. The house is still there. It was just recently re-sided. But they had a large market garden, which they used to sell flowers and vegetables at a roadside stand. So kind of a precursor to the Skeena Valley Farmers Market. And these are just unidentified photos, but I thought they were kind of cool of haying in the Terrace area. We are referred to in some oral histories as the breadbasket of the North. In the really early days, that's what we were called. And we were promoted all across Canada as a good place to settle because we could grow cabbages larger than people's heads. I don't know if people routinely grow those, but some of the early promotional literature was a little bit exaggerated, but I have seen some of them at the fall fair, so maybe people routinely do grow those. And then I thought I would share a few excerpts from oral histories. Just one shout out. I'm really looking for photos of the government-funded experimental farm where the Sandy Overpass was. I've been looking for years and I haven't been able to find some, so I thought maybe some of you guys would know with your farming interest. There was apparently a government-funded experimental farm at near the overpass, which experimented with different species and strains to see what produced best in this area. So if anyone knows anyone who might have a photo or might have stories about that, please send them my way. I'll pull my email up at the end again. And then I'll just share a few excerpts from oral histories. I was hoping to bring them and play them, but they're pretty quiet, and I was imagining everybody eating lunch while I was doing this, so at this point I probably could have brought them. But they were recorded in the 1970s, and then we digitized them from brittle cassettes, so they're not very loud. So I just thought I would read you a few excerpts rather than playing them. So this is from Elizabeth Whitlow, who we have a granddaughter, right? Or great-granddaughter? Great-niece? Great-niece here today. So she talked about being out in Kitselis, right? And she said, when it came to digging a vegetable garden, besides other miseries, the soil was found to be full of these tough hemlock roots, layers upon layers of them, crisscrossed in every way, in every possible direction, so it took hours and hours of back-breaking work to find any progress made in clearing them out to get sufficient space for planting the potato crop. So I just thought some of you as farmers may commiserate with that. Vera Frank, who I talked about her family when I talked about the Kitsim-Kalem Farmers Institute, said most of the people in the 1930s had small acreages on the outskirts of town. Each acreage had a garden, fruit trees, raspberries and strawberries, chickens, and a cow. Many of the owners worked in the bush or in the mills. In this way, they survived the Depression quite well. There were a few fairly large orchards where they grew apples, cherries, plums, and pears. One such orchard was on the bench near Skeena View Lodge, near Heritage Park now. Another was near Hoagland and Pear Streets. There were many very good vegetable gardens as well. And then we have an interview from Marie Cote, who is from a French-Canadian family. And she said that she arrived in Terrace with her family in 1922 when the population was about 300 people. Here is what she says about gardening. My father, John Louis Crescent, she pronounced it funny in the interview, so that's why I'm stumbling, had a farm on the bench for 2 or 3 years. He had quite a big garden and a strawberry patch, and he grew vegetables. But there was no market. That's why he quit. The strawberries were beautiful. He sent some to Prince George, but when he got the return, he had lost a little bit on them, and he had to bring them down on his back. He sent them down by train, but he carried them down from the farm to the train on his back. So a lot of the stories that we have are nostalgic, and others are talking about how difficult it was farming here in the early days. I brought in a couple photos of our garden. So this is the Heritage Garden at Heritage Park, one of its really good years. And the plants that we have in this specific garden and all around the site are from different families that have been in the area for 75 to 100, and I think 30 or 40 years is the oldest one. The honeysuckle that I mentioned earlier. We're very happy to share cuttings with you. We're happy to share the strawberries. We want to spread these plants around town. The golden glow that you see there grows sometimes to, I think our biggest measure was 14 feet, whereas in all of the catalogs it says that it should cap out at 9 feet. So these are plants that are adapted really well to this area and do really well in this area. So we're very happy to share them with you. We have raspberries that came from Port Essington, rhubarb that came from Port Essington, all kinds of different vegetables and flowers. So we're really happy to share with you, and we would love to see you guys. We would love to have you come up and dig up some of those plants. And did anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.